Hey y'all, I'm Kim, host of Book Marketing Mania, and I'm so thrilled you're tuning in to learn how to build your audience and reach new readers on podcast. This week, we're continuing our series of podcast interviews with author spotlights on new friends that I have connected with through the PodMatch service that we talked about in episode 131. I can't wait for you to hear from author and speaker Marnie Swedberg. Marnie is the author of a slew of books and is also founder of womenspeakers.com, matching event planners with speakers. If you are thinking of speaking to grow your author platform, whether that's in person on the stage or at home behind a microphone, you don't want to miss what Marnie has to share. And of course, I have to ask her about her experience with PodMatch as a podcast guest. You're in for a treat today, so let's get to it. Hey, Marnie, welcome to Book Marketing Mania. I'm so thrilled you're here to serve my listeners.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks, Kim. So excited.
This is so fun. So, Marnie, a lot of our listeners are writing their first books or figuring out how to market their books. But one of the big things they are doing is kind of kicking off their speaking careers. And so I would love for you to talk about what you founded for speakers, which is womenspeakers.com.
Oh, I'd love to. And I love talking about this. It was such a God idea. So I was minding my own business in 2002, and this blue clickable USA map came into my mind, and I didn't know why it was there. So I started praying about it. And after some time, understood that the mega churches could use speakers bureaus and bring in big name speakers for big bucks, fly them in and have them speak. But all of the churches smaller than that or with the budgets lower than that really were having a hard time finding speakers who just lived a city over or within driving distance or within their budgets. And God, his heart for this was that we would create a speakers directory where the planners could find the speakers who lived near them.
Yeah, that's so awesome. There's lots of speakers out there that have huge platforms and they do charge quite a bit of money, as they should. You know, I'm sure for speaking, but yeah, I know our poor churches that want to get together a women's event and can't afford to bring in a big speaker like that. I'm so thankful to get to go to churches and get to go to events that the tickets aren't sky high for me. So that's so cool that you offer that service. So I know you've been speaking obviously yourself for many years and having the speaking platform for other people. Let's talk about, as an author yourself, how have you seen that impact your book sales by being able to get out and speak to your target readers in person?
So I think the biggest surprise for most authors is that once you have a book, you actually get invited to speak. So that was a surprise for me, right? My first book came out in 1996, and all of a sudden I started getting invited to speak. And there are a couple of reasons that people want to book a published author. So the first thing is that when you're doing a presentation in front of a group, you can not possibly tell them everything you know in 45 minutes, or even in a 4-hour weekend where you have, 4 1-hour sessions. You can't. There's just too much information that's gone into that book to actually be able to share it all and have them really comprehend it at a deep level, like what they can do with a book. And so the book allows the listener to take you home with them, right? So planners love to book authors because of that follow-up opportunity for the audience to keep going with the relationship with you and with the life-changing information you were sharing. Okay, right? So that's how they should be, right? So the planners love to book for that. And then, yes, of course, because that just goes hand in hand. When you are doing your presentation, I always say, don't be salesy. There's no need to be salesy. All you have to do is just be honest. So you're sharing a riveting conversation, riveting instruction from the platform about chapter 10 in your book. But in chapter 10 also, there's a downloadable worksheet and there's a, test that they can take at home like that. So when you're sharing, you just say, I'm going to talk to you right now. Like I'm using an example from my book, Flow Through Vessel.
Yeah.
And in chapter 10, it talks about the trust levels with God. So I take them through the trust levels, but now we've covered surface level number 1 of this topic. And now if they want to go deeper, they should grab the book, right? Yeah. So what I'm going to do here right now in this conversation with you guys, I'm going to just introduce you to these trust levels so you can kind of get a feel for this. But then if you grab the book at the end, you can just go ahead and do the test yourself and then come back every 3 months or 6 months and do the test again. You can also do something like, I'm going to share with you right now the principle of blank. And I go way farther into this in my book, but right now, what I want you to know for sure to take home. See, so I'm not selling my book. I'm not saying I'm not going to tell you what's in it.
Yeah.
Don't ever do that. You're actually,
Yeah.
when you're up there, you're giving away the best content ever. You're not
Uh-huh.
holding anything back, but you are consciously aware of the reality that you can't possibly give them everything in this short period of time. And that's the approach to selling books.
Gosh, that's so true. I love that. Just, serving over selling and just like
Yes.
piquing their curiosity. And I know I'm like a huge note taker at events like that. So I'd be like, I'd probably miss something and be like, okay, well, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna go buy the book and it's gonna definitely be in the book and get more of it. And like you say, like I think about a lot of times these big women's events that have multiple speakers. I may have missed some of them, but I know if I go to the book table,
Yes.
I'm gonna find their book. And I know that, okay, if they were at this event, then that's the only endorsement I need. Like I didn't even have to see them speak. I just know from them being a speaker at this event, I need to have their book.
Yeah, I'd love to tag on to that because that's exactly how the planners feel about you as a speaker.
Uh-huh.
Your book is like the expertise level credit that they need to know to be confident that you know how to put together a thought process. You can bring a big subject into cohesive order from beginning to end. You've already done this process in your book. It's out there. And when they recognize that you're available to speak, they're like, oh, great, because I know she's going to do a good job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Oh gosh. I love that so much. Well, so talking about speaking and let's talk about podcasting because Marnie, I know you
Yeah.
host an amazing podcast too. And I'd love for you just to share how has podcasting helped you or have you seen it help some of your other speakers become better speakers because they are using their voices on a podcast?
No, I think for me personally, what helped so much was years ago when I started, in a podcast, maybe you have 15 minutes or an hour and a
Mm-hmm.
half or whatever. When I first started, I was doing morning drive time radio. I'd sometimes
Mm-hmm.
have 3 minutes total. And
Yeah.
what I found is that every concept that you want to share, you can either share it at the tweet level, where you only get, 108 characters or whatever. You can share it in a blog level where you have 300 words. You could share it in an article for a magazine, which you have maybe 1,000 words. You can share it in a one sheet paper where maybe you
Mm-hmm.
have 12,000 words. You can share it in a book format. You can do a whole series.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Yeah.
you find is that no matter what you're sharing, you are able to fit that content into the time you have. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, you asked me about womenspeakers.com. Well, we could spend a whole hour talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
womenspeakers.com, right? So, but what we do is that we learn during these interviews to actually fit the content into the time we're given for that particular aspect. So we become more efficient at communicating things quickly there, so that as you are speaking now from the platform, you're not spending 40 minutes building up to the one point you want to share and then walking
Uh-huh.
off the stage. Now you're able to weave in all of these different aspects and angles to build your one maybe big point or takeaway for the
Mm-hmm.
audience, but you're using many things to do it. So I feel like radio and podcasting, even writing a blog series, all of these things help us to be able to better communicate. And that's the whole goal, right? Is to just be able to
Mm-hmm.
communicate what people need to know in the time we're given.
Mm-hmm. That's so great. And I would encourage everyone to really listen to the way Marnie has done that in this interview so far, because I appreciate, Marnie, that you asked in the very beginning was how long is this going to go,
Right.
even though the time allotted on our calendar might be longer. But I love that
Yeah.
you asked me that because I was able to say, hey, it'll be actually this amount of time. And I could just tell, like that's
Right.
from your experience. I mean, like, okay, well, I've
Absolutely.
got this amount of time and this is not going to be a super long-winded answer, which I need to learn. I'm so bad about that, Marty. So I so
Yeah.
appreciate that. So let's talk about podcast guesting. So again, you're just
Yes.
being an amazing example of this right now. And how we originally connected for this, which is so fun because I was telling Marnie before we hit record that I have heard her name forever and followed her podcast. And I don't know why I haven't gotten in her sphere to ask her to be a guest until now when she popped up as a match on Podmatch. So I would love for you to share what your experience has been using that service to be a guest on podcast, or I don't know if you're using it as a host as well.
Yeah. So on Podmatch, the beautiful thing is that we can really do targeted searches.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an assistant who all her whole entire project for me is podcast guest bookings, and she
Yeah.
takes care of this side of things for me. But Podmatch makes it so that you can actually do it yourself, which is amazing. We've always
Mm-hmm.
had to have like expertise help really to find and get on shows. And I can't really say that that's true because I've always gotten on my OUT shows from the very beginning. I've always gotten myself on shows. But a lot of you guys are like, I don't really want to become a publicity agent. I want to be a writer. I want to be a speaker. And so once you know how it's done, then you want to have somebody else step in and help me and delegate as soon as you can. But in the meantime, Podmatch is a very low bar way to get in and to find podcasts that actually have openings for guests and that you match very specifically. So they let you, it's very similar to womenspeakers.com in that they let you set up a profile that allows other podcast hosts to find you because your words match what they're looking for. And so that's in the podcast world, the same kind of as Women Speakers is in the Christian women's ministry events world. Once that you are in there, the beauty of these sites is that everything is apples to apples. So I'm looking for a specific thing. And I'm going apples to apples to apples to apples. And I'm looking exactly at the next one to see which one really fits, which one is a perfect fit for my need right now. So podcast hosts like you, like me, other podcast hosts, I have so many people reaching out to me, right, to be on the show. And so usually I don't have to go hunting for someone. But now I want to do a show on a specific topic and I don't have anybody in my stable of guest potentials that I know about to do that. So I always start at womenspeakers.com because most speakers are available to do podcasts. So a lot of our speakers are invited to do podcasts through womenspeakers.com. But you go there, you just put your subject in, a couple keywords, and it's going to pop up for you matches, people who are experts in that topic so that you can reach out to them. Same with Podmatch. It's exactly the same. And I think what I like about Podmatch too is that you can actually, like, I know Tammy does a lot of the connections right inside the system. And we don't have that. We don't have that at womenspeakers.com. We do the connecting part and then the speakers and the planners get together outside of that. But typically that needs to be a phone call almost right away. So that's one of the differences. But yeah, I love Podmatch.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, that's how I connected with Tammy. And I love that it's just all in that one place and there's not all this back and forth emailing and getting resources. It's like everything is there for you to make a decision as a guest or a host. So yeah, I think that's just so fantastic. Well, so I want to ask you, Marnie, too, as you have been the author of how many books now? 14. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. So I know you've been around the author world for a while and seen lots of changes and things. But the one thing I want to ask you about, because I know a lot of authors will be a little hesitant on the marketing side. And sometimes they wait until they have the book in hand and then they're what do I do now? Right. And I mean, everybody just still today, that's what we think of marketing. Oh yeah, that's when I get my book, I'll start that. So I would love for you just to speak some wisdom into that about how we might want to start it a little bit earlier than we think.
So I like to compare it to a pregnancy and not quite as fun as getting a new baby, but a new book is pretty exciting. And when you think about your pregnancy, so when do you start telling the people in your world who are closest to you about this new exciting baby that's coming? You start usually about 3-4 months in, you start spreading the word. And then you have about 6 months for everybody to get their head around it, everybody get on board, plan baby showers, have the help with meals after the baby arrives, all that kind of stuff. So if you think of your book kind of in the same way, you want to start about 6 months ahead and you want to start just dripping out to your friends. So if I don't know you well, Kim, and I learn that you have had a baby, I just think, oh, wonderful, right? But if I'm your sister-in-law or I'm your really good friend and I hear that you've had a baby, how do I feel? I feel actually left out, right? Because if I really mattered to you, you would have told me ahead of time about this major life event. Well, I think we have to look at our books like that. They are major life events. Most people want to write a book, but most people never will write or publish a book. The fact that you're actually doing it, you're actually fulfilling a lot of people's deep down dream of something they'd love to do. And they maybe don't even know a single other author in their whole life. I remember knowing a lady for maybe only 6 weeks or so. And we were at a lunch at a restaurant, just there were 4 of us there, and someone else had invited her. And it came up during this lunch that I was a published author. And she got so upset. She was so excited, but she got so upset. She said, how could you not have told me about this, about, yourself? How could you not have told me? It's really important to people that you share the important things in your life with them. Yeah. And so when you think of it, and it kind of goes back to sharing about it from a platform too. What is your perspective about this? What's your perspective about this? Do you feel like what you're doing is of great value? Do you believe people want to know about it? Do you believe that what you have to share is valuable to anybody, to them, to someone they might know or love? And if you do, then you should share. Now, I do want to put a caveat on that. I've written 14 books, and I know a few people who have 14 children, but only a few.
That's so true.
Comes a point. I mean, I think of Pam Farrell, 60 some months now. There comes a point where you don't handle it quite the same big deal as you did at the beginning. Now people know this about you, that you are a prolific author, and they're following you, and they don't have to have the big, huge hubbub. But then by then you have an email list of people who are following you, and you don't have to do such a big buildup. But honestly, your first time or your second or third time out, make it a big deal, because it actually is a big deal.
It is a huge deal. I love that. I've always heard about people, their book babies, they're celebrating their book babies, but I've never heard it talked about that way, Marnie. And that's such a great visual and such a great thing that's going to stick in my brain now is, thinking of it. Yeah. Like when you first get pregnant and you share that news, and just how can we start talking to our readers and listeners way earlier? Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. That's incredible. Oh gosh. Well, I knew this was such a good idea to get you on here, because I knew you had so much wisdom. Like you said, I know we could divide up all these things I've asked you about and spend hours on each one of them. So I'm just so grateful for your time today, Marnie. Can you let everybody know where the best place is for them to connect with you online? Because I know they'll want to.
Yeah, for sure. So if you are a Christian women speaker, or you ever need Christian women speakers, go to womenspeakers.com. Just one S in the middle, womenspeakers.com. Love to coordinate with you over there. It's a huge collaborative. I mean, there's 1,600 speakers over there now. Wow. Thousands of planners use the site. So it's a really busy place. And if you're looking for more platform opportunities, join us there. Yeah. And then also Marnie.com is my main hub. And if you go there, you can register for free group coaching, as well as lots and lots of free resources there. So I'd love to see you over at my site, Marnie.com, which is MARNIE.com.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And I'll be sure and put all those links in the show notes. Well, thank you so much, Marnie, for your time today. I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you, Kim. This has been fun.
Oh, y'all, I absolutely love connecting with new friends and getting to serve you at the same time. I hope that Marnie's author and speaker journey inspired you with new ideas for your own. Stay tuned, as next episode, you'll get to meet a sweet author friend of mine to share about overcoming all the anxiety we get around marketing our books. And of course, she's going to share the success she's had using the Podmatch platform. I can't wait for you to meet Healy. Thanks for tuning in today. And as always, I'll be there for you to help you build your audience and reach new readers one podcast at a time. See you then.